I'm making sunshine for the journey. I'm making sunshine for the journey. I'm making sunshine for the journey. And I am making it right now.
Hey, everybody. Today we have another Sunshine for the Journey episode for parents. I'm excited to have my guests, Terry and Darci Craghead, on the show because they are truly helping Oklahomans help the earth in several important ways. And all of them are activities that kids can get involved with too. Welcome to the show, Terry and Darci.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
Can you tell us about the Fertile Ground Co-op, which you started?
Sure, yeah. We started at the tail end of 2011 as a side project of Commonwealth Urban Farms. We were an urban farming project who were composting food waste from a local grocery store. And I was interested in starting a worker-owned company and interested in composting and gardening. And saw an opportunity to create a business that solved multiple problems that I have been seeing in society. So Fertile Ground offers services to the community for recycling and composting. Our mission is to take waste and turn it into community wealth. And we do that through offering residential composting and recycling, commercial composting and recycling, zero waste event services, where we help reduce waste for large public events like art festivals, down to private weddings, small events. And then we make products with the materials that we recycle. We make organic compost that's used for gardens. We make mulch that's used as, in pathways and garden beds. Those are just a few of the things that we do at Fertile Ground.
Wow, that's wonderful. Can you tell us what inspired you to get into the work?
Meeting the folks at Commonwealth Urban Farms, some of my neighbors, really was a byproduct of my own interest in gardening. I was a recent stay-at-home dad. We had our first child. Darci went back to work. And I was just around the house and interested in gardening and wanted to learn about gardening. And so I would make trips to the OCU library where I would rent DVDs about how to garden and how to compost. And it was through that process that I was really introduced into the concept of composting. I watched a documentary, I think it was called Dirt or Soil, and it explored the history of agriculture and how humans have eroded our topsoils and just kind of ignored soil as kind of essential for life. And it was really that process of wanting to grow my own food in my backyard, seeing the waste that we were producing in our kitchen and realizing, oh my gosh, I can help solve some of these, large-scale problems for our family in our own backyard, growing food, creating our own fertilizer, which has all these great benefits for the soil and for our own health. And so that's really what got me into this. And then meeting the friends at Commonwealth and realizing there's a business idea here. We can create so much more good in the community if we work together.
Oh, that's really exciting. Did you spend much time in nature when you were children?
I loved to go camping, loved to go hiking as a kid. I was in Boy Scouts growing up, loved just anytime I could get outdoors. But then I also loved gardening with my mom. And that connection with nature was really crucial for me as a kid.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time outdoors as a kid. I lived in a suburban neighborhood, so I rode my bike all the time, played with friends outside. When I was really little, before I could really go riding around the neighborhood, I remember just digging in our flower beds and finding roly-polies, trying to make a place for them to live inside my house, and I would end up killing them on accident.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I remember picking, I forget what it's called now, henbit, or thinking it was flowers, taking it to my mom. And then I did some camping as a kid, but mainly my outdoors memories are just around my house, kind of just exploring in the yard and in the neighborhood.
What are some outdoor activities you like to do with your kids?
Yeah, so our kids now are 15, almost 13 and 10. So it's evolved as they've gotten older, but we still, like, over spring break, we went on a hiking trip, just like a day trip down to the Wichita Mountains. So yeah, we like short hikes. We've done a few longer hikes here and there. Just playing basketball down at the park. Terry and the boys like to, toss football around, play soccer. And when they were younger, they did a lot more like digging in the compost and that kind of stuff. They don't do that as much anymore. I guess our youngest, he's still kind of into like planting different things and seeing how they grow. But we enjoy just sitting in our backyard too, just hanging out and talking.
That sounds great. Yeah. So do they get excited about recycling or composting?
Now for them, it's kind of like a normalized part of their life. Like they've always grown up with us composting in the backyard. So they just, I don't know, it feels, I think, to them just kind of like routine. But yeah, when they were all little, they all really liked the compost pile, like digging in it, I remember our oldest, because she was really hanging out with Terry a lot those first few years when he was getting into composting. And she used to bring like the big grub worms into the house and like, Mom, look what I found. I was like, oh God, that's lovely. But yeah, she got really excited about it when she was little. And the boys have always enjoyed it too. Just kind of seeing, because, when you dig through the compost pile, you realize it's a whole world, a whole world of different bugs and living things. And kids usually find it pretty interesting.
Yeah, I bet.
And I'd say they're conscientious about like what to do with waste products. They're just kind of by nature, they'll ask like, hey, is this recycling? Is this compost? If they're unsure about something. So, yeah. Yeah.
And we keep a little tub on our counter at our house. So usually when they have their friends over, if their friends go to put something in the trash, they're like, oh, no, that goes in the, compost thing. And kind of like a little learning time for friends too. Like, oh, we put our food over here when we're done with it.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah.
So how would making or using compost benefit families with children?
So I think compost is a great introduction to understanding ecology and sustainability. Because almost everyone can do some level of composting at home, whether that's, setting up a compost bin and letting, a hot compost pile cook in your backyard or having a worm bin inside. I think it's an excellent way to teach kids about kind of the cycles of life and death and decay. And it's a great way to teach science at a young age and make it tangible and real for kids to see. There's this whole ecosystem of bacteria and fungus and roly-polies and earthworms and then birds and all kinds of things that work together to recycle life. And so that just tangible, hands-on learning, I think is a great way to help kids connect. And then, then in the future, they just have the foundation of connection to seeing cycles of life and death and recycling and not wasting, seeing everything as a resource and a valuable part of life.
Yeah. And I think also the learning, that you can take what someone might consider waste, make it into something useful and good for the land, is also a good way to show like, oh, we don't have to, go buy this fertilizer. We can do this with what we're doing at home. It's more natural, less chemicals in the environment, just for your own yard and also for, everything around you where things are going to, things run off of your yard into the water and into all of our shared resources. And so, kids really soak a lot of that in at a young age. And I think naturally as humans, we want to be helpful. We want to care about our community or those around us. And for kids, I think it's even more natural. Like they're just kind of geared that way. So
tangibly, one of the benefits too, a lot of people spray their yards with herbicides and fertilizers to kind of have that ideal looking ornamental lawn. But a lot of people don't realize the herbicides that we're using have impacts on young brains and young minds that are, it's not healthy for children to be around. these herbicides, especially at a young age when our brains are so sensitive to these toxic chemicals. So in a lot of other places, it's much more mainstream to not spray your yard with herbicides to kill all of the so-called weeds, but to use another practice called top dressing with compost, where you're building the soil and encouraging the plants that you do want to grow, but it's kind of changing the mindset of maybe we're not as concerned of having like a Versailles Palace lawn or something like, but we're trying to both take care of the children and the pets that live around us. But we want things to look nice and look beautiful. And there's ways to do that, without using harmful chemicals. And so composting and compost application, at home is a really critical thing that more folks should know about.
Well, can you tell us more about how using compost will help the environment?
Yeah. So compost is this amazing well of environmental benefits. So for one, when we divert material from the landfill, we are reducing the amount of methane that gets produced. When we bury food scraps in our lawn, grass clippings, trees, leaves, when we take those to the landfill, we're using this unnatural process, these new technologies that we've invented over the last 150 years, where we not only throw our waste into this landfill, this pit, they're now mountains, but every day these things get buried. All the things that we put in the landfill get buried, and it keeps oxygen away from the decomposing organic matter. And the byproduct is methane. And methane is 20 to 80 times more heat trapping than carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is the natural byproduct of organic matter decaying. If you think in nature, when a tree dies and falls over, it's got access to oxygen. When an animal dies or is eaten, the animal or its waste is exposed to the air, and aerobic bacteria, these oxygen-loving bacteria, will decompose it and produce CO2. But methane is just, this accelerant for heat-trapping gases in our environment. So the first benefit is it reduces the harm of heat-trapping gases. The second benefit is that it cleans our waterways when we apply compost to our landscapes, to our lawns and our gardens. It allows water to infiltrate. Rainwater will infiltrate into the ground at a much higher rate, and that reduces the amount of runoff of soil erosion, the fertilizer and chemicals that we've put on our lawns and landscapes. It reduces the runoff. The runoff from our lawns goes directly into our storm drains, into the river. And that's what causes the algal blooms, the blue-green algae that in the summers in lakes in Oklahoma and other places, they're created from these fertilizers. And so both compost reduces the amount of fertilizers that you need to add, synthetic fertilizers, but then it also helps more of that rainwater soak into the ground and less of it will run off. Compost sequesters carbon. Obviously, you're taking carbon, like compost is carbon mixed with other nutrients. Mm-hmm. And so you're putting it in the ground. So you're temporarily storing carbon or sequestering carbon, but you're also, the real sequestration happens from the plants that are trading nutrients with the microbes in the soil. So you have, if you think of a tree is using photosynthesis. It's pulling carbon out of the air to create sugars to grow itself. It's feeding some of those sugars to the bacteria in the soil. And then in exchange for that carbon, the bacteria will bring nutrients into the plant roots. If you think of it like our guts, our gut microbiome, without the bacteria in our guts, we would not be able to process the nutrition that we eat. And it's the same in the soil. When we make the soil environment inhospitable to bacteria, it makes it really hard for our plants to utilize nutrients that already exist in the soil. And so compost basically it's like a prebiotic for our soils. It feeds the bacteria in the soil more carbon and makes a more flourishing biodiverse system that supports lots of life in the soil microbiome that ultimately helps pump nutrients into our plants and helps, our grasses and our vegetables and our trees grow stronger and pull more and more carbon out of the air to feed more and more of the bacteria in the soil. So it just has so many benefits. It's kind of a miracle.
So in your experience, when you put compost down for, like, say, a grass lawn or trees or any kind of plant, do you notice that the plants grow a lot better?
Yeah, certainly. I was talking to a farmer last week. I mean, I have my own experience of really, I haven't done trials at home. When I started gardening, I started using compost right away. Mm. So I guess I don't know that I've seen kind of the bad side. I was talking to a farmer last week who got into composting just intuitively. He had grown things like oats, and he did a trial side by side where he did 5 acres of oats where he only applied compost, and then he did the rest of his field, the other 25 or 50 acres, however, but a much larger in conventional production. And he said it was night and day. The oats in the compost were up to his waist by the time this was. I don't know if he was in June. But at the same time, the conventional ag, fertilizers, herbicides, it was only up to his knee. And he said it was consistent and just glaringly obvious. So yeah, because it's feeding more nutrients, it's providing these immune benefits because the plants have more nutrition to utilize, but it's also holding on to water. And so the plants have more water more regularly spread out that they have access to. And so it just helps things grow faster.
Mm-hmm. Boy, that's fun to have that example of the farmer who knows from his own experience how different it is. I also know you help with recycling efforts here in OKC. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, for sure. So early on, when we started Fertile Ground, we were talking to restaurants about recycling their food waste. They were like, this is really cool, but we're not even recycling like our glass bottles and, like recyclable materials. Could you help us? And we didn't really have a plan in place, but we were like, sure, we'll figure it out. So over the years, yeah, we've figured out a way to work with the recycling material recovery facilities that will sort the materials when they're combined together. So yeah, we collect both for homeowners in certain areas, but also for restaurants, offices, some large businesses. You can either mix your materials together and we'll collect that and bring it to the MRF, the Material Recovery Center. Or we also have dedicated source separated recycling systems. So like for glass can no longer be mixed with the other recyclable materials. And so we set up a separate glass collection route because the way that the big material recovery facilities work is material enters, it's dumped into a big pile, and then it's put on these conveyors, and different types of conveyors will separate different types of material. And by the end of the process, what happens is glass gets broken and basically accumulates with lots of trash mixed into it in the single stream system. And in Oklahoma, we don't have any facilities that can clean the glass. So you have bottle caps and plastic rings from, pop bottles and little bits of paper. And for our glass to be used and recycled in the city recycling programs, it has to be trucked down to Midlothian, Texas, where they have specialized recycling facilities with optical sorters. And unfortunately, we don't have those yet in Oklahoma. So the best way to recycle glass is to keep it separated from everything else. So we work with a company called Dulubac out of Okmulgee, Oklahoma. And because we keep the glass separate, they provide us a container at our headquarters in Oklahoma City. And we go out and collect from homeowners, from businesses, from bars. And when our roll-off dumpster gets full, we call up Dulubac and say, hey, it's full, come get it. And they'll bring us an empty one and pick up the full one. And they'll recycle that glass back into cullet, which is used to make new bottles.
We also have a drop-off set up at our office warehouse location.
Mm-hmm.
So we have quite a few people that come to use that drop-off, and it is source separated. So when you come to drop off, it's signed for you. So you've got your plastics, your cardboard, your paper, aluminum, tin cans, glass, food waste. And then we bail it there on site because it's already separated and we don't have to separate it.
Do you have to be an Oklahoma City resident to do that?
So it's a free drop off. So anybody can come use it any hours that we're open. And yeah, it's especially helpful. I think we have quite a few people that come because they live in apartments where there's not a recycling setup for them. So they just, keep their material until they're ready or have enough that they want to drive it down to us. But yeah, it's a free drop off. Anybody can use it. We don't really check anything. We just have it set up there. You can come in and say hi to us, but you don't have to.
There is a donation option.
There is a donation option.
We have a pay what you can barcode you can scan outside, or QR code if you want to make a donation, but nobody's outside. No, we don't really know when you come and go. So it truly is just a donation-based program, and that helps us just cover the cost of labor to move the material. But then ultimately, when we make bales of these recycled commodities, we're selling these things, months later when we have enough of any particular material to sell. And so far, we're still pretty new to selling the recycled products. We've sold mostly cardboard and aluminum cans. And the whole system is just built on, it's a market-based system. So like manufacturers need these materials to make new products, and so they're buying them. And so when we have plastics that we're unsure about whether these are recyclable, the ones that we know that are valuable are the number one, plastic bottles, number two, like milk jugs. Milk jugs are almost as valuable as aluminum by weight. And then sometimes number 5 plastics like polypropylene are valuable, but the value of these things floats with the value of oil. And so as oil goes down, the value of these commodities goes down. But our position is like, we want to encourage people to recycle. It's harm reduction. It's not the only solution. It's just one small thing we can do to reduce the harm of consumption and of just life in modern America.
So the people that buy, are they usually American companies?
It's a complicated question. The local paper manufacturer, like cardboard manufacturer, I say they're local because they have a facility in Dallas. They're called Smurfit, formerly Smurfit Kappa. Now they're Smurfit West Rock. And they collect the material and remanufacture cardboard boxes in Texas. But they're an international company. I think they're an Irish-based company, just a very large company. Some of the other materials, there are manufacturers of particular plastic items I know of in Missouri. They use some of the recycled plastics to make, pallets out of those recycled plastic pallets. Other like faux wood construction products like flooring that's, might have plastic built into the flooring product. It just depends on the material. Definitely aluminum. Aluminum is recycled here. It's made here. Ball Aluminum is a very large manufacturer in the U.S. And more and more of the economy is with the recycling industry changing a few years ago. China decided they don't want to take a lot of the recycled material that America's producing. They had enough. And so what that meant that the U.S. market for recycled material just kind of got flooded for a time. Values of the materials went down. But now we're seeing, production pick up, more manufacturing using local products. And I think it's, constantly things are in flux, but it's worth our time to try to figure out how to reduce our consumption, reuse things, and recycle what we can't, what we must purchase.
I'm really excited to hear that there are more buyers right here in America. I didn't know that because I knew about the situation with China not taking the recycling anymore, but I hadn't heard the update. So thanks for sharing. So how could people find out more about your services?
So yeah, you could go to our website. It's a great place to see just the range of products and services that we offer. Our website is fertilegroundok.coop. You can also check us out on Instagram, on Facebook. Fertile Ground OK is our tag, at Fertile Ground OK.
Great. And I just also wanted to mention one thing about composting, because I've been composting too through you guys since you started your new program with the bins. And if I'm right, are there still just 8 bins around town?
We have 19 new drop-off locations.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, I have been composting since you started and using the one that's closest to me. But what I like to do is I take all my scraps and then put them in bags in the freezer until I have enough and get a whole big bag and then drop them off. And that way it's not a big pile that I'm dealing with at my house. And but I feel really good about being part of the process. And now we've bought 3 different truckloads of compost to have put around our trees and on our yard. And I've found that it's been amazing for our plants, which has been really exciting to use. And I also know that some people can also come, if they want a smaller amount, they can just come to you and get bucket loads of compost, which they can load up into their car. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. You can come get it, the smaller quantities in our 5-gallon buckets, or some people even bring their own containers and fill it up, and we'll estimate kind of how much they get and then charge them based on the volume.
That's so great. Well, thank you both for being here today. I so appreciate your coming on the Ready, Set, Go show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
A lot of fun.
I'm making sunshine for the journey. I'm making sunshine for the journey. I'm making sunshine for the journey. And I am making it right now. And then I watch the news and think, well, where do I even begin? And then I think again, if not me, who? And if not now, when? If not me, who? And if not now, when? So I'm gonna put one foot in front of the other, 1 foot. I'm gonna put 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot. I'm gonna put 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot. Yes, and I'll be on my way. Yes, I'll be on my way.
How you gonna make sunshine?
I'm going to open my mind. Do what makes me smile inside. Then I'll share my smile with you. And like a wave, it will reach others too. I'm gonna put 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot. I'm gonna put 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot. I'm gonna put 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot. Yes, and I'll be on my way. Yes, I'll be on my way. And I'm making sunshine for the journey. I'm making sunshine for the journey. I'm making sunshine for the journey. And I am making it right now. Say that again. Yes, I am making it right now. One more time. Yes, I am making it right now.
Sunshine.
The Ready, Set, Go show is part of the Possibilities podcast platform.